I don't think that guy is supposed to be in there. Spider-Man 2018 is probably one of my favorite games of all time. The game is super addicting, has a really good story, and I couldn't be more excited for the sequel. But in my excitement for Spider-Man 2, I realized that there was actually a game in the series that I haven't played yet, and that game would be Spider-Man Miles Morales. This game came out holiday of 2020 when everyone was having the time of their lives. It was a launch title with the PS5, but was also available on PS4, and I just never really got very excited about the game, because from what I had heard and seen, it was basically just a short side game that didn't introduce a whole lot of new concepts. But now, since I'm in a Spider-Man mood, with Spider-Man 2 coming out soon and Across the Spider-Verse being really good, I decided to finally pick up the game. Also, this video is just sort of a gauge on whether or not you all want to see some more non-Nintendo focused videos, so let me know if you enjoyed this one. This game picks up sort of where the last game and its DLCs left off. Miles is now acting as a sort of Spider-Man sidekick after gaining powers during the events of the last game. The game opens up with the two Spider-Men chasing down Rhino to stop him from causing general mayhem. This is sort of the tutorial part of the game where it teaches you the basics of how to fight as Spider-Man. This all basically just leads to Miles defeating Rhino by himself, which then leads to Peter letting him take over Spider-Man duties while he is on vacation. That's basically the setup for the game, and from then on you are thrown right into the rest of the game. So this game is set up a lot like the original. You have that little yellow marker always letting you know where you should be, and then a whole lot of side content littered around the map. Now, compared to the original game, there is definitely a lot less to do here. While the same map is reused from the original game, it isn't as packed full of stuff. But that is to be expected since it came out only 2 years after the first game and clearly was meant to be more of a side game than a full sequel or successor. A lot of the side content is slightly different, but still the same basic idea as the stuff in the original game. You've got the time capsules, which replace the backpacks. We still have the bases, but they are just owned by different gangs, and we still have side quests and crimes, of course, but some big improvements have been made with those two in particular. In the first game, side quests would be placed around the map, and crimes would just sort of randomly pop up, which could make it sort of annoying if you were trying to complete all of the crimes in an area. But now, all of the side quests and crimes are put in this Spider-Man app Miles' friend made, so you can look at all of the crimes and quests you haven't done in one convenient place. While this doesn't change much for the side quests since you still have to go to where the quest starts anyway, this does make a huge improvement for crimes when you're trying to 100% the game. In the first game, if you wanted to complete all of the crimes in an area, you would just sort of have to swing around and wait for one to pop up. But in this game, you can just select it on the app and do it that way. Crimes do still pop up randomly, but this just makes the process of completing the game much simpler and less tedious. But other than this, I don't really have a whole lot more to say about the side content since it is so similar to the first game. I like the way that the game was set up, and this game is set up the same way, but with more quality of life improvements, which is great. But I would argue the biggest changes in this game are how Miles plays compared to Peter. In Spider-Man, there's a lot of focus on using gadgets as well as other abilities like your suit powers. But in this game, you are given a much smaller assortment of gadgets along with your all-new Venom powers. The Venom powers basically just hit enemies harder as well as stunning them, but you have to use your focus meter to use them. In the original game, the focus meter was used for finishers and healing, but in this game it is still used for healing, but instead of allowing you to perform finishers, it allows you to use your Venom powers instead. The Venom powers feel really fun to use, and it can feel great using them to take out large hordes of enemies, but at some points they did make the game feel a little easy. The original was already not that challenging, so now that you have these crazy new powers to take out enemies with, it just sort of makes the game feel like there isn't much of a challenge at all. Like the big enemies. These guys used to be sort of a pain to deal with, and I do mean that in a good way. You had to change up the way you fought and make an active effort to take these guys out compared to the normal ones that just get launched in the air and can't really do anything about it. But in this game, you just sort of go Venom Punch, and then you don't have to worry about them anymore. One change that I do like about this though is that finishers are now combo based instead of just getting them once you fill your meter. To get a finisher, you actually have to play good for a little bit and then you can have your fun. Don't get me wrong though, I still think that the Venom system is really fun, but I just wish the enemies were a little more prepared to deal with it so that when you get that powerful Venom hit on an enemy, it feels even more satisfying than it already does. Also, this game's trick system is really fun to do. You can do all sort of flips and stuff in the air, which gives you small amounts of XP as well as filling your focus focus meter. This is useful because you can now do a Venom jump, which allows you to stay higher in the air when you are trying to pull off tricks while swinging. Miles can also turn invisible for a limited amount of time, which is very useful in stealth sections. I wouldn't say it makes them easier, because in the first game you could use your gadgets and you didn't really have to get close to enemies, but since you really don't have access to those in this game, it requires you to get much closer to enemies if you want to take them out stealthily, so the invisibility helps balance that out. Also, in this game, you start off with basically all of the skills you could unlock in the first game, so now the skill tree is used to unlock more Miles-specific abilities. You can upgrade your Venom powers, invisibility, and just general combat. This makes coming off of the first game feel much more natural, as you aren't treading old ground and you're actually gaining new abilities that weren't available in that game. Suit mods make a return in this game as well, but a few changes have been made. Suit powers are gone, and with how strong Venom is in this game, that is definitely a good thing. This leaves us with just suit mods, which are now split into two categories. We have suit and visor mods, and you are allowed to have 2 mods in both categories. Some of these are unlocked by crafting new suits, and some are unlocked by just directly crafting them. These do the typical things like reduce a certain type of damage, boost a certain stat, or give you a small new ability. These are fun ways to change things up like they were in the original, and I don't really have any complaints about them. Overall, Miles is pretty fun to play as, putting aside the fact that I think he can make the game a little easy at times. I will admit that I do miss some of the gadgets from the original, but overall, this is a super fun character to play as, and I'm very excited that you'll be able to play as him alongside Peter in Spider-Man 2. While this next part isn't as important as the gameplay, it's still something I want to talk about. A big aspect of the game that encourages you to do the side content are the unlockable suits. A lot of the suits in this game feel a little samey to me compared to the first game. So many of them are either just the main suit with clothing on top of them, or just follow a similar design to the main suit. None of them look bad, and there were a few that I really liked, but some of them were just kind of meh. But the main reason I wanted to talk about the suits is so that I could just talk about the Spider-Verse suit. This one looks so cool, and it looks like you just ripped it straight out of the movie. And to make it feel even more like the movie, you could turn on an ability that lowers the frame rate of Spider-Man so that it looks like the animation in the movie, and that is so cool. You don't really see stuff like this in other games, and I just really wanted to talk about it because I think it looks really nice. So now we're going to talk about something that I usually don't spend too long on in my videos. The story. Usually I'm talking about some Mario game or something, so the story isn't really that important when talking about the game, but in this game's case, it is a sequel to Spider-Man, and I absolutely love the story in that game, so I went in with decent expectations for this one. But ultimately, the story was just alright, I guess. It definitely had its good parts. Like, I definitely liked Miles a lot more as a character after beating the game, and the interactions with Miles' uncle in this game are some of my favorite moments. But other than that, I just didn't find myself that interested in the story. The main concept is that there is this company called Roxxon who is making this new renewable form of energy to power the city with. Problem is that this new form of energy, that is actually called New Form, kills people. So now there's also a gang called the Underground that is dedicated to trying to stop Roxxon, but the problem is that their solution is to blow up part of the city, which is usually not a good thing. So now it is Spider-Man's job to stop both of these factions as they both battle it out in the streets. Now, the villain I liked in this game was the CEO of Roxxon. He is just cartoonishly evil, and I think that's funny. But the leader of the Underground, the Tinkerer, I just didn't really care for all that much. Her whole thing is that she is actually a really close friend of Miles, which could be interesting, but we just don't spend enough time with her before we find out that she's the villain, so it's kind of hard to care that much about her. Also, near the end of the game, she finds out that Miles is Spider-Man, and she gets really mad because she feels like she can't trust him, and that he lied to her, even though she lied to Miles for most of the game about being the Tinkerer, and she didn't even tell him. He finds out himself. So I don't really understand why she is so mad because Miles lied, even though she was lying to him. The story isn't awful, and there are probably some problems with the original game's story as well, but I just feel like we didn't spend enough time with most of the characters to really care about them. The ending of Spider-Man genuinely made me feel sad, but in this game, I just didn't really feel anything at all. Ultimately, I think that the story works as a fine introduction to Miles as Spider-Man, but it just isn't much more than that. Overall, I did have a really fun time with this game, but it really just never reaches the same heights that the first one does. But what this game does do is get me very excited for the sequel. If they can combine some of the new ideas from this game with the things that made the original so special, then we are going to have a masterpiece on our hands. Being able to switch out between Miles' Venom powers and Peter's more gadget-focused combat is going to keep the game feeling very fresh, and alongside those two, we are going to have the symbiote suit, and it looks like you will be able to do some crazy stuff with that. For those who played the original, I wouldn't say that this is a must-play, but if you just want more of the first game, I do think that this is still a pretty good time. And also, I found this game on Amazon for like $40 with Spider-Man Remastered included, so it's safe to say you will definitely get your money's worth. Now I just gotta try and get this guy out of here so I can actually beat the game.